Welcome to another episode of the Walking Off Podcast. Super hyped for my guest today. OG friend of the show, some may say one of the first players I've ever interviewed, almost a year ago to the day, I would imagine. Pretty close to a year. Of course, I'm talking to Brandon Knarr of the Milwaukee Brewers. He was signed as an undrafted free agent back in 2020. Brandon, how you doing, man?
Good. Glad to be back on. Yeah, I think it's been about a year, almost exactly. So it's probably
Yeah,
around
so
there.
Yeah, so the last time we were talking, you were training in Florida. You were getting ready to head over to Instructs and all that. We were talking about your experience that you're going to have in Wisconsin. How has that been so far? I know you played a little bit in Wisconsin. How have you enjoyed the state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get up there in the latter half of the year. It was nice change of pace weather-wise, especially getting up to Wisconsin later in the year. It was going from Carolina where it's hot and humid to Wisconsin with 70 degrees, and
Yeah,
those games at night at the Timber Rattlers ballpark was nice. I mean, it was really great environment. Really enjoyed it.
awesome. What have you been up to? What has your off season been like?
So this offseason's been a little bit different. Uh, the Brewers have me in a velo camp kind of program. So I've been kind of getting back and forth between Florida and Arizona. So I've been in Arizona now for a couple of weeks, and I'll be through spring training. So it's been a little bit different. Been a lot more. I don't want to say training focused because every offseason is training
Hmm.
focused.
Hmm.
But more central focus, I would say, just kind of on improving some mechanical stuff and working on some efficiency in movement and, hoping everything comes together right in about a
Yeah.
month. So,
Yeah, it's coming up soon. It's coming up
yeah,
soon.
yeah, it's coming
So
quick.
what exactly how does that what is a velo camp? Like what is that? What do they do?
So there's a couple different ways to approach it. What I've been mainly doing is a lot of weighted ball throwing, plyo care ball throwing, um, and then playing around with kind of volume, intensity, workload, routine, trying to find essentially what works for you with all of that. And then kind of the Brewers did a really good job of finding some mechanical inefficiencies. I don't
Mhm.
really, it's not necessarily an issue, but it's just an inefficiency in movement.
Sure, sure.
Um, and then kind of translating that into some drills and giving me a chance to really work on some small little things that hopefully translate up the chain.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see because, like you said, spring training is almost here. A lot of the guys that I've talked to so far from the Brewers camp, they're heading over there or getting ready to head over to Arizona. Let's take a dive into kind of how you got into baseball. At what point did you start playing baseball, and at what point did you realize that I'm pretty good at this game?
Um, I started playing, back in Little League and all up through and all that, and I was more hitter focused.
Hmm.
Spent a lot of time in the cage. Consequently, I got really good at hitting in a cage and not good at hitting in games. Um, so that's kind of when you start getting on the mound, and then I went to a showcase my freshman year and threw pretty hard at the showcase. I think it was like 83, 84. Um, and from there just started like really looking into the pitcher path. Still hitting high school and everything, but it was pretty clear that pitching was where I wanted, like where my next development was going to be.
So you were
Um,
you were a position player and a pitcher. At what position did you play?
I played first base.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
then
that was
when
like up through high school.
okay.
Travel on the travel circuit though, I was exclusively pitcher.
Wow.
Um, because once I started, competing against guys that were Division 1 hitters or D2 hitters, I was not gonna be in in that boat. I can get them out. I can get them
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
but
And you did. You were a really good high school pitcher. You were, I think, what the third ranked left-hander in your state. At the school that you went to. Actually, you transferred schools. So, talk to me. What went into the decision of transferring high schools?
it was just family situation.
Okay,
Just
it
moved.
wasn't baseball related.
Yeah, no, we just kind of moved. We just kind of moved across the river. I was quite literally across the river. Um,
Nice.
So
And was that school? How was the program? How did they compare? I guess the two programs.
yeah, I mean, we had two. It was two good baseball programs. The school that I went to, or my high school that I graduated from, we had a lot of really good pitchers throughout my time there. So it was fun. I like my friend and I would always compete for strikeouts and always kind of push each other in practices and throwing and everything
Mhm.
else. So it was really good to have that extra competition to be around. Um, and then like my senior year, it was nice to be more of a leader
Yeah.
on that high school team, obviously.
What year did you commit? Because obviously you went to. We'll talk about the colleges because you went
Yeah,
to several.
yeah, I
But
bounced
at
back
what
around.
point did you? Yeah. At what point did you commit to Notre Dame?
I want to say it was the beginning of my junior year when I committed Notre Dame. I was there after it was after the Texas game, opening week of probably the 2017 season, I think, or
How many?
2016 season
Okay. How many other
for
colleges or
football.
universities did you visit before settling on Notre Dame?
I went on a few different visits. College-wise, those visits are all fun to go on, and
Yeah.
it's always cool to see different campuses and see everything.
Partied up
Um,
with the guys there.
yeah, well, yeah, not necessarily at that age, but because my first visit was probably my freshman year.
Oh
I
wow, that's
visited
young.
I
Yeah.
visited Pitt. So visiting like Pitt and Penn State, Purdue, I toured a lot of the Big Ten schools. Um, Visited some Ivies. And then it kind of just came down to I liked everything about Notre Dame. Um, and obviously what happened there, we'll talk about later. But
Yeah, yeah. How many guys from your school were committed out of your high school? Did you guys have a pretty stacked team?
not too many. I think we had three or four guys that were moving on to play college baseball, which for where I was at was a really good number. We weren't stacked or anything. We had a chance to be really good on a couple of games, and just one pitch just didn't go our way,
Yeah,
and then
that's the way it
that's how
is
it ended. Yeah,
sometimes.
my sophomore year, we lost the championship on a suicide squeeze.
Jeez.
So yeah,
Were you
that's a
pitching
way
or
to
no?
lose. Yeah, I was the pitcher on that one with a
Wow.
suicide squeeze with a runner. I came into the game, um, inherited the runner, I believe, at second, and there might have been a pass ball or something for him to get to third. Um, and then he ended up they won like our league championship on a suicide squeeze.
Wow. That's heartbreaking for you. Incredible for them to
Yeah,
be that ballsy
yeah,
in the
they're
championship
pretty good.
game.
They had two guys that I don't think they're playing in the minors anymore, but they were in the minor leagues as well.
Okay.
That was like my sophomore year of high school. It was a really good series.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you went to Notre Dame, obviously playing in the ACC. How was it going against teams like Louisville, Wake Forest, North Carolina? A lot of really, really good baseball teams.
Yeah,
Did you play against Bennett? Because I know he was in Louisville
I
around the
yeah
same.
yeah we put he was I remember like watching him pitch because I believe he was Friday night at Louisville at
Hmm.
that point,
Okay.
or Louisville, I should say.
Yeah, Louisville. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, because I talked about that. I pitched there for like two-thirds of an inning, and did pretty well, and then the classic freshman lefty reliever role, get yanked around,
Hmm.
and but pitching against and getting to compete in the ACC was a really good experience. Just because you you get to this really high level of baseball,
Hmm.
and at that point, like obviously it's the highest level of baseball that I've ever played. So getting to see all that and experience that as a freshman, and then understanding like, okay, well, I'm throwing 87, 88, touching 90 every once in a while, and the Friday night guy is 91, 92. So
Hmm.
you're not that far off. So once you realize, okay, well, so the Friday night guy is on most teams is getting drafted and is moving on to play professionally for most teams. So
Hmm.
once you see that, you see these other guys, and I kind of evaluated where I was at, and then it just motivates you to get better, especially as a freshman, seeing that kind of talent and then realizing that, hey, that I see where I'm at now, and like that talent level for me is attainable. And then obviously you start going into minor league games and it's kind of the same process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible because you're looking at these guys and you're like, I can do that too, or that's not something that it's too hard for me to eventually get to that level.
Yeah.
You,
And it's sometimes it's not really a confidence thing. I think it's just being honest with kind of where you're at and where your stuff is relative to the competition that you're playing.
mhm,
And I mean that's what the game's all about. That's why there's all the rankings and everything else and all the stats.
mhm,
So I kind of looked at everything objectively my freshman year, um, and really saw that like and then I had a chance to pitch against our team, which our team has I think that team has like 5 guys in professional baseball right now.
which team
Um,
is this?
Notre Dame, my freshman
Oh, okay.
year.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Um, so like even pitching in inter squads
Mhm,
to guys like Matt Beerling with the Phillies or um, Nick Podkolzin with the Blue Jays and like so getting that experience in inter squads was huge confidence boost, especially going into pitch against anybody else.
mhm.
Um, just simply because if I'm able to compete, and win against our guys, it translates over into the game.
Yeah, and that does breed confidence though, because I mean you're pitching against these guys who are, eventually going to get drafted, and you're performing well. That gives you the confidence to then go out against other teams for other colleges. You didn't pitch much in Notre Dame. What was that? Just because you're a freshman and you had improved yourself? What went into the decision of eventually moving from a Division I school to the JUCO route?
Yeah, so that was a really, obviously it's going from Notre Dame to a JUCO level education wise is not what anybody would expect. Um, but baseball wise, I really wanted to get down to Florida, um, and start competing in some warm weather and getting the chance to really develop openly. Um, and that's ultimately what made the decision. And like I transferred to College Central Florida, which has taken off.
Hmm.
They're one of the best JUCOs in the country. I loved every single one of my teammates that year. Um, I mean, it was a phenomenal year with them, and everything that went into that decision was back behind just trying to say, okay, well, let's see how good at baseball I can really get.
Hmm.
And CF provided me a great opportunity to really train and get after it and compete there. And with most of that coaching staff now is most of the coaching staff at CF that when I was there is almost all in professional baseball,
That's incredible.
at some level or another.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your numbers: 13 starts, 16 games, 6-1, 86 strikeouts. You averaged 11.8 Ks per 9 innings. You performed really well, and you obviously got that chance to pitch a lot more in there, or in the JUCO. What was the biggest difference? Because you obviously the ACC, very um, really good facilities. The travel is a lot nicer, and then you go to the
Yeah.
JUCO schools where they're smaller. They're playing in smaller towns and cities, almost similar to the minor leagues, really. What was some of the biggest differences that you noticed going
Um,
from Division I to JUCO?
one of the biggest differences between like JUCO and D1 and D2 and um, having played now at multiple different levels, I feel like I'm pretty qualified to speak on different competitions. But JUCO wise, your top end guys in JUCO and almost every 1 through 9 in JUCO or at least 1 through 5 has really competitive baseball and really competitive kids and really good talent. The difference between a JUCO team and a team in the AC, especially a team in the ACC, is depth. Um, Teams in the ACC will line up guys out of the bullpen or line up starting rotations, 1 through 5 deep, whereas JUCO may be 1 and 2 deep, or
Hmm. Hmm.
my CF team we had a few injuries that really impacted our chances that year. But we were built like a D1 team that year. We would have competed against a lot of really good D1 teams, I feel like, that year.
Yeah, and then obviously you were pitching well. At that point, scouts were watching you pitch again. I think the Phillies had contacted you while you were there. Did you want to go the draft route, and or why did you end up sticking around for another season, or actually not even sticking around? You transferred again. But how was that process of kind of figuring out what you were going to do next?
Well, kind of my sophomore year when the draft came around, I didn't. I had an idea of kind of, hey, like, this is what I'll sign for. This is kind of what I want to do. I had talked to multiple different teams. Um, the Phillies and Brewers were kind of, I would say, most heavily involved, probably my sophomore year, with a few other teams like the Red Sox and Cubs coming, and talking. And it really just came down to the fact that when everything fell in the draft and however the draft pools fell and the way they contacted me, and it just didn't work out that year. I think if I wanted to make it work out, I could have,
Mhm.
but I was very much committed and excited to go to Tampa, so I was happy with either option that ended up
Yeah, and
that year.
Tampa
So I
obviously,
was yeah, I was just very open-minded at the end of my sophomore year as to
yeah,
kind of where I was going to continue playing baseball, because at that I had the opportunity to go to Tampa.
yeah, and
Um,
Tampa's an incredible school, like a baseball school.
yeah, no, Tampa's a fantastic program. Um, that was great. That was a great experience and a great team. Um, I will say any day of the week that we would have won the national championship that year. Obviously, you didn't get to see it play out with
Right.
COVID, but we had a great team.
Yeah. So of all those teams that you were playing for, all three of them, like, did it? I guess not ACC, so we talked about that. But your JUCO schools, were there anybody from those schools who also got drafted, or signed maybe as unsigned free agents as well?
Yeah. So we had, I believe there were, from that team that I was on at Central Florida, there's now 5 guys that
Okay.
are playing, that either played or are playing professionally
Hmm.
still,
Hmm.
um, through either the draft or undrafted free agent contracts. Um, and Tampa, I believe there's 2 other guys right now, and hopefully more after this year's draft cycle.
Yeah, and I guess Tampa, they're a really good team. They obviously compete every year for the conference championship. So in 2020, obviously COVID happened and it's still happening, and um, who knows when it's gonna be over. To be honest, I guess it just never seems to stop.
Hopefully soon, but
Hope, yeah, fingers crossed,
yeah.
knock on wood. Hopefully it's soon, but obviously you were kind of a victim of COVID just because the draft obviously went down to 5 rounds. And at what point when the draft was over, did the Brewers reach out to you? Like, how long did it take for them to be like, okay, you're our guy. We would have drafted you. We kind of been watching you for a while now. Like, we want you on our team.
So I had gotten a call the day the signing period opened, from the Brewer scout saying, "Hey, I'm pulling for you with everybody. I'm talking to everybody. Um, I'm trying to bring you in. We want to bring you in," type of thing. But
Hmm.
we don't have an offer yet.
Okay.
And I think it was like a day or two. And he was like, "Hey, like, I'm doing my best, doing my best, really, really, really pulling. They're
Yeah.
liking everything. They're liking everything that they're seeing and hearing. Obviously, with COVID and scouting, it was just a completely different ball game
Yeah.
because
Everything's thrown off.
um, everything was thrown off. I only threw 35 innings at Tampa. And some teams didn't know whether they were looking for me as a starter. Some teams didn't know a reliever. Um, and at the same time, MLB is implementing roster limits on these teams. So
Hmm.
it was just kind of crazy. And they asked for some like throwing data, because the only real data that I guess the Brewers had on me was from my time at Notre Dame, which didn't represent the velocity or
Right.
anything that
Right.
I had improved upon in my junior year. And I sent over some reports and some data, And it was within 30 minutes of me sending over the reports and data to them that the scout called me back up and was like, hey, here's your undrafted offer.
Yeah, that's incredible. How many were there other teams that are kind of having that similar conversation with you? Like, we want to draft you or we want to sign you, but the same situation where they couldn't look at all your data.
In that period, it was mostly the Yankees. Um, they had sent me. They actually like ran my advanced scouts at Tampa and had sent them to me and kind of sent me this really cool breakdown of my stuff and kind of what they were expecting to do with me as kind of like a selling pitch. But the Brewers got to me before, and honestly, I loved everything that the Brewers had to offer and everything that the team had to offer. Just from the Brewers are very known for their pitching development and everything that goes on, and that for me was huge. And the Brewers were looking at me as a starting pitcher too, so getting the opportunity to throw more innings and develop in a starter role was also just huge for me in wanting to sign.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I'm glad you didn't sign with the Yankees. I mean, nothing against the Yankees. I mean, just being able to know that
Hey,
there's Brewers here.
I love Milwaukee. Even though I haven't been yet, I can say I haven't been to Milwaukee. I drove through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love my time in Appleton, and I love being up there.
Yeah, we'll have to go to a game sometime if the schedule lines up in Milwaukee. If you're out there in Appleton and the Brewers are playing in Milwaukee, hopefully this lockout is over. We'll see if we can try to get to a game.
Fortunately, the minor league schedule has been pretty good with the 6 days on and 1 day off. That Monday off has really been, for the most part, we don't. I think in Appleton they travel a little bit more than they did in Carolina, just because of the league's kind of alignment. So the travels might get in the way of that Monday off day, I think sometimes. But
well, if it works out, we'll see.
No,
we'll see what happens. So, hey, do you think preparing or playing for the JUCO teams kind of prepared you for the life and the grind that is the minor leagues? Because the minor league system is a grind. Like the travel is long, the bus rides are long, the lodging on road trips isn't always the best. How was it kind of getting situated into the minor leagues?
I really enjoyed a lot of that, and that's kind of that JUCO mindset. Once you get down there, it is a little bit different breed of baseball player, because if you're going to a JUCO, you're really going there for the baseball. You're going there to play baseball. So you run into a lot of people that love baseball. So and when you're around that so much, it really kind of rubs off, and it creates this really good energy of just enjoying what you have. And the best or funniest or whatever minor league hotel you want, we were in Kinston, North Carolina this year with the Mudcats, and we stayed at this place called it was the Mother Earth Motor Lodge. And it is this like retro 50s, 60s themed hotel, like polka dot. Everything's to like the same. It's like you walked into a movie set of like the 1950s, and it's not the most glamorous hotel. It's not the nicest, but it was just like I would never have stayed at that place otherwise. And after being there enough, I enjoyed my time there. So it's kind of funny.
I can't even imagine walking into that. If I was a baseball player walking into that, I'd be like, is this the best we can do? Like polka dots and like, what is going on here?
I mean, it's kind of funny. When we first got there, like they had like your classic original like mini golf course with like it's not like it's like standard miniature golf, because there's all different things, but it's like with the just straight lanes, cut corners, like kind of bounce it off things. So Evan Reifert and I, when we first got into Kinston after that road trip, like after we got back from the one game, or I think our game was rained out or something, I don't know how many holes of mini golf we played at that place, because we just didn't want to go in the room. Yeah. So we just were outside. It was like 60 degrees, and we played. I want to say we played like 72 holes of mini golf
Jeez,
in like the evening, just because we were just outside playing mini golf back and forth for so long.
that's awesome. I mean,
Um,
who won? Who won the majority of those games?
I think it was pretty even
Pretty even.
competition. Yeah. We both golfed together in Carolina, so
Oh,
so
okay,
we were used to each other.
like
Um,
actual golfing, not
the
not
actual
just yeah,
golf,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
not just mini golf, yeah.
yeah,
So I kept telling him, which he eventually he got moved up to Wisconsin earlier than me, but
hmm
I had to make a few more trips back there. He didn't, but I was joking with him that I was going to bring my putter down next time on the road trip, so
yeah, yeah,
so to
and
get a leg
now,
up on him.
yeah, exactly. Now he's for Florida. No, Tampa Bay. He's
Yeah,
traded
yeah,
to the
he's
Rays.
he's with the Rays. Yeah,
Yeah, I was talking to him maybe a couple of days ago. Actually, I was just messaging him back and forth. I told him I want to have him back because he's been on the podcast as well. I told him
yeah,
need to have him back on, talk about the whole trade and kind of what that whole situation is. Because I when the trade happened, I messaged him. I said, "Dude, Tampa Bay, if they see you as a pitcher and they want you, they trade for you. Like they're a they're similar to the Brewers. Like they develop pitching really well and they recognize
yeah,
talent." So I said, "Dude, congratulations, man, because like you're going to be in the best situation. Not that he wasn't, but I said, you're going to be in a really good situation to succeed over there with Tampa Bay."
yeah. I mean, he has some incredible stuff. Um, just like his fastball slider combination.
hmm
So I mean, I'm pulling for him all the time, and I'm obviously not happy to see him go, but
Yeah,
at the same time, it's like wherever his opportunity is going to be, he's going to find it. So I
yeah.
was happy for him.
So you pitched well this season for your first full professional season. You were pitcher of the month in July. I think you had 45 strikeouts and 5 appearances for Low A. How was it pitching over there in Low A in Biloxi? Oh, not
Or
Biloxi. Sorry,
Yeah,
in
Carolina.
Carolina.
It was great. I love Carolina. I love the staff that we had in Carolina. Um, I loved just that ballpark, and that environment was
hmm
very good in Carolina. We didn't have as many fans as Wisconsin, that's for sure. Appleton draws a lot more fans, but
Okay.
Carolina was fun, and the team we had in Carolina was great. Which most of that team in Carolina ended up in Wisconsin at the end of the year. So it's kind of like a Mudcat 2.0 in Appleton.
Nice.
Um, but Carolina was a fun, and it was a fun league because most of the travel was pretty short. Um, and with the way the schedule works, like you just get used to playing these teams over and over again. And um, when you're pitching against a guy for the second time in 2 weeks, you're facing him for the 10th
hmm
time in two
hmm
weeks, and it's like, okay, well, how am I going to get him out? How did I get him out last time? Um, what's something new that he hasn't seen? What did I do last time? What am I going to do this next time? So uh, a lot of that was like a very interesting challenge with the new rules of kind of how to throw to guys
hmm
multiple times. I mean, it's kind of the same way in the big leagues, the way they constantly play back and forth. But
Especially in
um,
division.
yeah, especially in division. So it was kind of, I think, from obviously I can't speak to what minor league baseball was like prior to this past season, but I think
Right.
at least this year it kind of like replicated that. I want to say like repetition of like facing guys and understanding. For me, it was really understanding um, like the scouting reports later in the year once we started to get some advanced numbers on guys,
hmm
and understanding how to pitch to kind of my strengths to their weaknesses. Or sometimes you just got to go with your strengths and it's their strengths, and whatever happens happens.
Yeah. What was some of the more interesting cities that you traveled to this past season? Because obviously, minor leagues, these teams are located in a lot of them are in smaller towns, smaller cities, sometimes in the middle of nowhere. You talked about that hotel you stayed in or motel that you stayed in. What was some of the cities that you visited that you think to yourself, now I'll probably never go there again unless I'm playing baseball?
There's quite a few of them that I probably won't be back to. There's nothing wrong with any of them.
hmm
Um, I'm trying to think. Um, the one that like I really enjoyed going to in the Carolina League was Kannapolis,
Oh, okay.
Kannapolis, North Carolina. They just put in a brand new ballpark. The city was really cool. Our hotel Um, we had a Holiday Inn, and it was right next to, like, Dunkin' Donuts and everything else, so I could go and get a coffee in the morning. So it was great. Um, I really like going to Kannapolis, and Fayetteville was also really nice in North Carolina.
Mm.
Um, Another brand new ballpark, kind of like the same thing. Um, which the new ballparks and the stuff over there were fantastic. Um, and then in Wisconsin, when we played, it was Grand Rapids, I believe, Michigan, like our last series of the year. That was another really nice place to be, just because the ballpark was nice. They had a decent amount of fans, like at that point in the year.
Mm.
Um, and they were vying to get in the playoffs, and we actually kept them out. So
Nice.
it was a fun series for us
Yeah.
because we weren't going to make the playoffs, but we weren't going to let them make the playoffs either.
Yeah.
So it was a fun
So
series.
yeah. So just kind of looking back on your first full season of professional baseball, um, you got moved up. How was it? Like, how did they tell you that you're getting moved up to go to Appleton? And how was it that transition from low A to high
So so the finding out I got called up from low A, was unbelievable. Joe Aralt was just amazing. So I was pitching in Down East in Kinston, so we were actually staying at that Mother Earth Hotel,
A? Oh,
against the Wood Ducks, and I, it was later it was like the fifth inning for me. It was hot. Um, I had thrown a decent amount of pitches, um, and I think I started to lose like my control, and I was a little like, um, just missing. Like I wasn't missing by a lot, but I was just missing. I think I walked like one or two guys, and it was like, okay, some things. So there's runners on second, and third. I had two outs, um, and Acuna's brothers at the plate. Um,
Ronald Acuna.
yes,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah. So his brothers at the plate. Faced him a bunch like throughout the year. He clipped me sometimes. I got him sometimes. So he's at the plate, big spot in the game. And A-Roll comes out, not my pitching coach. A-Roll comes out and kind of gives me this pep talk and is like, "Hey, like you got it." I'm just like, "Hey, I want the ball," type of deal. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not coming out of this
Mm-hmm.
game. So he walks off the field. I end up striking out, Acuna, or his brother, and I get off the field, and Aralt just grabs me and like kind of announces to everybody that, hey, like I'm going to high A, like in the middle of the game. It was really like it was a surreal
Wow.
experience. Like as soon as I got off the mound, so I'm like just pumped up that I got out of the inning, and
Yeah.
then like I just get hit with this like, hey, you're going to Wisconsin.
Wow. That's incredible.
And yeah, so like he did a great job of just making it a special moment for me. And it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
and then as far as like getting to Wisconsin was a little bit, was a
how's
little
that
bit of,
process of transferring?
yeah. So I kind of like went back after that night. Our strength coach drove me back to our locker room in Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
so I could get all my stuff and get my car and start my drive up to Wisconsin. And then the next day, I get this phone call that, my roommate, had COVID
Oh,
as I was driving to Wisconsin
your roommate in Carolina.
in Carolina.
Okay.
Had COVID, so I'm driving to Wisconsin. So now I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So they're kind of calling me to try to get me a test on the road. So,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, I got up there, had to quarantine for a few days, didn't get COVID,
Cool.
and then went into my next start.
So how was it looking for a place to live then? Because you went from having your place in Carolina. Did you have to like, you know, ask around like, hey, who got a bed open, or how did that work out?
So some guys, that got moved up had different, places. Fortunately, they had a like team hotel, deal in Wisconsin, where, so I was able to have a roommate, and then we kind of split the hotel up, and then had a little bit of a kickback, from the Brewers, so that we were just kind of splitting the room. So I just was in a hotel. I think I was in a hotel I stayed at a hotel in Carolina too. Um, so I stayed at a hotel starting in March and didn't get done staying in a hotel till I want to say like end of September.
Wow.
So I was just in hotels like the whole summer, almost the whole spring and the whole summer. Um, so it was really like, just packing up, moving. Um, so my car was like my house. I had all my stuff in my
Yeah.
car.
Man, that gets to be hard though. Who was your roommate in Appleton?
In Appleton, it was TJ Shook.
Okay, okay, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and in
So
Carolina, it was Ken Hasler.
okay, so obviously you pitched well. I think you had 128 Ks your first season between low A and high A. How do you feel your first professional season went?
I think it went really well. I'm really happy with the strikeout numbers, obviously. There's a few other things that like looking back on it,
Hmm.
that I'm really glad that I learned, and that I'm really glad that I can, kind of act upon in this next year. Because especially your first year, and especially coming off of a year with no baseball,
Hmm.
um, is this huge learning curve. So understanding, you know, understanding both professional baseball and then understanding, hey, I haven't pitched in a year.
Hmm.
Um, so coming off of that, and really trying and really taking a lot of the lessons that were learned last year into this year, um, and obviously hoping to do even better. So
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think you're doing well. Like obviously, like I've been watching kind of your start from Carolina to Appleton. I was actually talking to Justin Jarvis not too long ago, and I had asked him in Appleton. I said, "Who puts on a show during batting practice?" And of course, he said Weimer, Gray, um, Dillard puts on an absolute show. Watching from the bullpen, or while or before you're not during your pitching time, but just watching your team hit and have their at bats, because obviously that Appleton team is pretty stacked with a lot of good talent.
yeah,
How is it just watching all these guys play?
well, you stand close to the warning track, especially when you're in check and BP. um, but no, getting to watch those games. So one thing that I loved about this year's schedule was that, I'd essentially, the way the schedule works and the way everything, I would go in and I would get all my work done. Everything that I had to do for the day would be done. Shower, change, and then I just become a fan in the dugout. And I'm a good fan because I'm watching and I'm tracking and I'm
Right,
trying
right.
to learn from what's going on. So I'm a very attentive fan. Um, but I just get to sit back and enjoy
It's
what happens
awesome.
on the field and enjoy what happens with the team. So I love the way the schedule works. Like a lot of times, I would only be pitching once a week. Um, so you pitch in that series, and then you kind of like you get a little bit of a breather, kind of once you're done pitching, to like say, okay, say that next night, I'm able to kind of relax a little bit and really enjoy kind of what's going on the field.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, no, my mind went blank. I was gonna ask something. I had a question ready to go, loaded. Um, wow, I can't even think. My mind's completely blank now. Oh well. Okay, so pitching in Appleton and obviously watching this team play. Have you watched much of the Brewers in the big team and the success that they've had? Obviously, not getting as far as we wanted them to get, losing to Atlanta. But like, do you
Yeah.
watch that team at all?
Um, as much as it can, it's tough because honestly, a lot of times we play at the same times.
That's true. Yeah,
If the
think about that.
Brewers are playing and they're in the afternoon and we're at night, it's on the TV in the clubhouse.
Nice.
And especially in the playoffs, all eyes are on them, and so it's fun getting a chance to look at that team and be like, well, I'm in high A, so we're in the
Hmm.
pathway to get to that team and help contribute. So that's
Yeah.
obviously the goal.
Yes. So what do you do in the locker room when you're just hanging out there? Like what do you do? You play cards? What kind of who controls who's the like the locker room guy, like the glue guy in the Appleton locker room?
In Appleton this past year, and what I love about professional baseball, especially, is all the different personalities from all the different
Right.
places and everything you get mixed into the locker room every day, and it's really really cool. Weimer's really good in the locker room. Weimer's great to be around. Joe Gray's great in the locker room. I'm trying to think of some other names to kind of like come to mind. Um, but just that whole dynamic is really fun to like get to go to, essentially work every day
Mm-hmm.
with the teammates. And it's fun to get because that's kind of like our office area. I don't know,
Yeah.
kind of
Right. Right.
it's
No, for sure. I mean,
yeah.
it's a lot.
So
It's more fun
it's
than my
yeah,
office area for
yeah.
sure.
It's definitely really funny to think that like, hey, this is actually my job.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you really have to treat it that way because you have to like dial in and focus on
Hmm.
on what you have to do, and it's not always fun, but it's always
Mm.
enjoyable. There's always, hey, I might find something new, or I might find
Yeah.
something that will help the team win, or I might find something that will fix this. And it's not always fun to do those things, but it's an enjoyable process through and through.
Yeah. How long did it take for it to settle in that you were actually a professional baseball player, especially after sitting out a year, um, going from college to college, yeah, through your three different colleges and the university that you played for? At what point did it like just settle in? Like, I finally kind of made it where I've been trying to make it since since I was young.
I still can't believe it. So I believe that I'm in the position and everything
Hmm.
else, and I believe I'm a professional baseball player. But sometimes you walk into the complex each day and you go about your business and you're like, wow, I really get to do this.
Hmm.
Um, and it really, especially for me, I just try to keep it in perspective because I just really enjoy being where my feet are and enjoying what I get to do each day, which
Hmm.
is, play baseball, practice
Yeah.
baseball, talk baseball, talk
Yeah.
about the Brewers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really fun and I really enjoy, everything about it.
That's incredible. Was there anybody who kind of took you under their wing and kind of like showed you the ropes, either in Carolina or Appleton or even both?
I was fortunate enough to have great relationships with the staff at both of those locations. To have great feedback from pitching coaches and the organization, to have great feedback from the coordinators, to have great feedback from teammates, or the person that comes to mind would, as far as like, this is a little bit different than the question you asked, but
Sure. It's okay.
um, if Zamora was behind me at shortstop, if Freddie Zamora was behind me at shortstop, and he would come to me every once in a while and he'd be like, "Hey man, that change was nasty." Then I knew I had a good changeup that day.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
was just
that's good
kind of
enough.
it was
That's a good
just like
answer.
it was just kind of some cool like little like some cool little things that when you're on a team or when you're around somebody for that long, it's like, hey, like him coming up to me and saying that, like, all right, I got it. Like,
Hmm.
it's just a little extra. It's just a little extra kind of confidence boost, especially in game. It's really cool. Um, so stuff like that, and then obviously on the data and analytics side from coaches, and
Hmm.
and then especially I think a lot of the Brewer staff does a good job of mixing kind of, hey, we have all these numbers, we have all this analytics, we have all this data, we know what you do, we know what the other team does, but hey, you just got to go out and do it.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, especially in Wisconsin, had a lot of great conversations that helped out on the execution part,
Good.
for me.
Awesome. Well, let's end with this. Like, what are you looking for in your second season of professional baseball? Is there something I know you're in the camp and trying to improve there. What is maybe some personal goals that you set for yourself, or that you're hoping to achieve this upcoming season?
Um, I think there's a lot of things that I want to achieve this season. The main thing that I try to just focus on, um, is just trying to be consistent.
Hmm.
It's that's for me, that's the most important thing, is I try to keep everything kind of process oriented and kind of focus on really what's going to help me get there is what I do each day. So
Hmm.
um, my main goals for this year are to be more consistent, both like from a routine perspective, from a start perspective, from a velocity perspective in game. Um, I want stuff to be consistent. I want to work off that, and I really want to build upon each start, um, and kind of learn more as this year goes on. Because I don't, not to say it's not to say it gets any easier in year two, but a lot of the first stuff is over with. Your first start
Hmm.
is over with. Your first debut, at least at the minor league level, is over with. So it's a lot more chance to breathe, and a
Yeah.
lot more chance to really hone in on what you're doing and focus on what's going to help you, what's going to help your team, and hopefully what helps the Brewers in the long term.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited. I'm hyped up to see what you do, Brandon.
Yeah,
Like I said,
thank you.
friend of the show, been here before. It's been a while, but I'm glad we have you back on. We'll have to have you back on more often. I got to get your roommate on, Josh Shapiro. You got to
Yeah,
let him know. Just kind of
yeah,
mention
for
to be like,
sure.
"Oh, you haven't been on the podcast yet?" Like, really? All right. Well, you're missing out. Just kind of
For
throw out the
sure.
seeds.
Yeah, yeah, no, I got you there.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, hey, I will let you go, Brandon. I will be watching you. Hopefully, Double A is kind of in the future here soon. We
Yeah,
kind of
I
see
mean
you make that
that's
next step.
that's obviously the goal.
Yeah, very really cool. All right, Brandon, you have a great night, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks for having me
for
on.
sure.